Vice President and I were trying to decide who they were clapping for. I wasn't supposed to say that. Any event, welcome. Since the very beginning of this administration, the President, the Vice President have focused on the vital importance of technology to our economy, and that has been an integral part of the broad-based, consistent economic strategy that they have followed over the past 6 years. When the Internet was still largely the preserve of scientists and professors, the President and the Vice President saw the enormous opportunities in the Internet for businesses and for consumers. But they also understood that new issues accompanied new benefits. When the President first asked Ira Magaziner to examine these issues, there were no rules of the road. Ira advocated and developed, and then helped establish, the principle that the private sector should lead and that government's role, where necessary, should be to create a framework that would allow the private sector to flourish. And I believe that Ira deserves enormous credit for setting this approach and then for working with others in the administration, Congress, and the private sectors to move forward on a whole host of Internet-related issues. Commerce Secretary Bill Daley also played a key role, including working with Congress to ratify and implement the two 1996 World Intellectual Property Organization agreements. U.S. Trade Representative Charlene Barshefsky was deeply involved, too, directing the efforts leading to the May 1998 WTO moratorium on customs duties on electronic transmissions. We at Treasury have worked closely with the Vice President's office, Ira, Sally Katzen of the National Economic Council, Secretary Daley, and Ambassador Barshefsky, particularly with respect to privacy, electronic money, and taxation. This effort contributed to the passage this year of the Internet Tax Freedom Act. I think Congressman Cox and Senator Wyden are here who have been deeply involved in that effort. This act, as you know, provides for a 3-year moratorium on new or discriminatory taxes during which the representatives of state and local governments, the federal government, and the private sector can find a way to make sure that commerce over the Internet receives the same treatment as traditional commerce. Treasury is also seeking to vigorously use the possibilities of information technology in our day-to-day activity. We are now a large issuer of smart cards, and the Internal Revenue Service has processed over 100 million individual returns through electronic filing programs. In 1992, there were very few users of the Internet and virtually no capability of conducting commerce. Yet I remember in our economic strategy discussions during the transition prior to the first term, hearing then Vice President-elect Gore discuss the important potential of the information superhighway, a phrase he in fact had coined many years before. Senator Gore had also sponsored legislation which eventually resulted in over $1 billion of funds to begin the process of developing the then called information superhighway. He has long had a keen understanding of the critical role that technology must play in an economic strategy for the 21st century. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Vice President of the United States.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, and it's really a great honor to work with you and your great team at Treasury, particularly in such a time as this. You inspire such confidence here and around the world. And Mr. President, I would like to, on your behalf, acknowledge other members of your administration team who are here. Ambassador Charlene Barshefsky, our Special Trade Representative, Administrator of the SBA. Well, all these people deserve applause. And Administrator Aida Alvarez of the Small Business Administration, and Chairman Bill Kennard of the Federal Communications Commission, Administrator David Barham of the General Services Administration, Deputy Secretary of Commerce Bob Mallett, and as mentioned, he and Bill Daley at Commerce had played key roles in all of this. the Chief of Staff here in the White House, John Podesta, who himself is quite an expert in these technologies, Ira Magaziner, about whom I'll have a few more words to say in just a moment, David Beyer, my principal domestic policy advisor, and Sally Katzen at OMB. And David will be chairing this new task force, and Sally will be his vice chair. And don't ever underestimate the importance of that vice chair position in any organization. It's very significant. Members of the House and Senate who are here, Senator Conrad Burns of Montana, Senator Byron Dorgan of North Dakota, Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah, Senator Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia, Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, and members of the House, Congressman Chris Cox and Congressman Chip Pickering. And let me say, these members of the House and Senate have been absolutely key to the movement forward for our country and through our country for the world's movement into this revolutionary new development. And we are very grateful for the bipartisan working relationship that we have on these issues. And I want to thank all of them and some of their colleagues who could not attend today, but these individuals have been great leaders on this issue. To the members of the business community who are present, I'm not going to acknowledge everybody because there's such a wide array of leaders here. John Chambers, I'm going to introduce in a moment from Cisco Systems, but there are a lot of other CEOs who are present. Meg Whitman will speak, also CEO of eBay. But I had the good fortune of meeting earlier over in the Roosevelt Room with a large group of CEOs in this industry, and I'm grateful for the chance to do that on a continuing basis. There are members of local and state governments here, and I can't acknowledge all, but I want to acknowledge Senator Scott Howell of Utah and Senator Kenneth McClintock also here, and there are so many others. Esther Dyson. I could single out a whole group of people here, but in the earlier meeting we were talking about some of the early days, and some of the business leaders were researchers back and technicians back in those days, and I was recalling a very early prophecy of this development, and I'd like to begin with words from the writer Nathaniel Hawthorne. Some of you have heard this passage. In 1851, inspired by the invention of the telegraph just 16 years earlier, he wrote these words: "By means of electricity, the world of matter has become a great nerve, vibrating thousands of miles in a breathless point of time. The round globe is a vast brain, instinct with intelligence." Well, in all years since, I don't think there's been any better description of what the information superhighway is becoming, what the global information infrastructure is now providing for hundreds of millions of people around the world. With 140 million users now around the world and 52,000 more Americans logging on for the first time every single day, the Internet is remaking the way we live, the way we learn, the way we work. More messages are now sent by email than by regular mail. And what began as a specialized network for computer scientists has become a global nervous system for the entire world. And even as we begin to feel the power of the Internet in almost every aspect of our lives, one of its most lasting impacts is just now emerging. You can see it on the covers of two of the three most prominent weekly news magazines in America that came out today, this week. E-commerce. 27 million purchases are now made on the web every day. I remember when President Clinton and I came into the White House in January of 1993, there were 50 sites on the World Wide Web. The phrase was unrecognizable to most people. But now global electronic commerce is expected to grow to more than $300 billion annually in just a few years. Nick Negroponte, known to many of us here, a longtime friend and head of the MIT Media Lab, has his own unique way of explaining this emerging global marketplace and its significance to the new economy. He often tells friends that if they remade the movie The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman, somebody would walk up to his character and whisper in his ear, instead of plastics, transactions. And in this emerging digital marketplace, nearly anyone with a good idea and a little software can set up shop and then become the corner store for an entire planet. Who would have imagined that someone who simply wanted to find other people who were also interested in collecting Pez candy dispensers, you remember them, would become eBay, one of the fastest growing companies today? We were talking about that earlier, and I was reminded of a prophecy of Marshall McLuhan several decades ago when he said that the content for the new media will be the old media. I don't think he had Pez dispensers in mind, but certainly we've seen amazing things happen. And what eBay's founders realized, and what Meg Whitman has captured so well, is the powerful idea that people need a central location if they're going to buy and sell unique items. The internet makes any connected computer that central location. And any desktop can be a doorway to a global mall with a sign that says, open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And new developments are going to take this far beyond personal computers. The burgeoning world of new connected devices held in the hand, put on the belt, put in the purse, wherever, will be the new gateway to this global mall. And just as it helps companies like eBay, it also opens the world to people like Helen Mutono, a Ugandan woman who uses the internet to sell Ugandan baskets with the money going to help children who have been orphaned by AIDS. Or the village near Chincheros, Peru, which has quintupled its income by forming an online partnership with an international export company which arranged for its vegetables to be shipped and sold in New York City. In fact, by the year 2010, we can triple the number of people who can support their families because they can reach world markets through the internet. And these developments, in turn, will drive the emergence of brand new phenomena, just as exciting as e-commerce, that we can't even imagine today. And while these incredible stories represent a quantum shift in commerce and the human condition, e-commerce is even broader than small entrepreneurs reaching a larger world. It is also about companies using the vast resources and networks to connect with each other through business-to-business electronic transactions. For example, if you want to place a bid at eBay, the information you convey with the click of a mouse most likely travels through Cisco routers. And how much does Cisco depend on the internet? Well, they booked $100 million in sales on the internet in 1996, and 1 year later, it was more like $3.2 billion. This year, it's about $100 million per week. With nearly 7 out of 10 customer orders coming in over the internet, this is helping to make them one of the fastest growing companies in the history of the computer industry. We were talking earlier about how if you look at their market cap, this brand new, relatively new company now has a market cap larger than that of General Motors and Ford combined. Just another straw in the wind, indicating how powerful this new revolution is. And this proliferation of internet-based commerce is good for consumers. It is good for companies large and small, and it is awfully good for our economy. And we want it to continue. And that is why President Clinton and I have worked so hard to create a framework for global electronic commerce that would keep the internet tax-free, keep competition vigorous, protect consumers, children, and electronic privacy, and leave supervision not to the government, but to the people who know the internet best. It is also why we should hasten the completion of the infrastructure upon which electronic commerce and the internet depend. The Global Information Infrastructure, or GII, a network of networks that sends messages and images at the speed of light on every continent. This would help us build a true global electronic village, to expand access to all forms of communications, to improve the delivery of education and health care and all services, and to create new jobs and even whole new industries as yet unimagined. The simple fact is that in today's global economy, we are all connected. Global interdependence is not a policy, it is a reality. And that is why President Clinton's leadership in this area is so important. You know, Bob Rubin talked about those days in the transition. President Clinton was insistent that we do everything possible to accelerate these developments from day one. And I want to especially thank Ira Magaziner for his years of dedicated work on this subject and for helping us so skillfully to move into the information age. Ira is a personal friend. He has brought his unique energy and creativity to the complete command of this subject matter and has done a really spectacular job. And before I introduce John Chambers, I would like to ask all of you to join me in giving a round of applause to Ira Magazine. Where is it? Stand up, Ira. That wasn't in the notes that he gave me for suggested comments here. At this point, I am very proud to present President Clinton with this new report which demonstrates our progress in electronic commerce over the past year in these key areas. Mr. President? There you go. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce a man who has been on the front lines of this information revolution. His company is, and so many companies here, I hesitate to say this, but it is clearly, I would say without fear of contradiction, one of the most respected companies, not only in this field, but in any field. His business philosophy has been widely emulated by people who want to adapt to the new culture of the electronic commerce age. He has also helped to bring that revolution to all of our children by setting up networking academies in many of our empowerment zone high schools. And he pledged to put one in every empowerment zone, and we're trying to convince all of the schools to accept. John Chambers recognized the power of the internet early on, and I'm very proud that he is here today because he's going to tell you that using the internet to handle everything from customer orders to managing expense accounts saves him a whopping $360 million a year. Now, and also he has 70 vice presidents reporting to him, which shows he truly knows the value of that particular position. And he himself was a vice president before he had his present position. But now I didn't want to miss those highlights, but seriously, John Chambers is a true leader in this industry and in America's economy and in the global economy, and will be even more of one in the years to come. It truly is a pleasure to introduce a friend, the President and CEO of Cisco Systems, John Chambers.
This is truly a new experience for me. If somebody would have told me during my days at business school and law school that I'd be talking about business and government working together, I would have said that was very unlikely. Silicon Valley learned the hard way how important it is to work with government. We're very lucky to have a president and a vice president who truly understands the role that technology is going to play not only in the future of our country, but the future of the world. They understand the technology and they understand it in detail to understand the implications of their decisions. I've had the chance to tour around the world and speak to most of their counterparts on a global basis, and I do not think I'm underestimating the point by saying they're 2 to 3 years ahead of their counterparts. But it isn't just the administrative branch of our government that understands it. When you look across our representatives like Representative Cox and Eshoo, senators like Senator Abraham, and Burns and Wyden and Rockefeller, they've taken time also to understand the technology and the implication it has for our society. And Ira has just done an amazing job in developing the trust of business and understanding the role that the internet and e-commerce are going to play in our future. It's interesting when you think about e-commerce as an example. It was just $10 billion in e-commerce in 1997, and Cisco did a third of that. The projections now are 200 to 300 billion by the year 2002, 2003, and we're just now beginning to realize that number is going to be off by probably a factor of 5 to 10-fold. I do not think it's an understatement to say that 5% of the global commerce in the world by the year 2005 will travel over the internet. And by the year 2010, 25% of the world's commerce will travel over the internet. In short, it will change retail forever. But e-commerce is just one application of what's going to be a whole raft of applications that is going to truly change the way we work, live, play, and learn. When you think about how it's going to change our lives, it will create a level playing field between small companies and big companies. Not only in this country, but truly on a global basis. And more business and government leaders are understanding the implications of that around the world. As Vice President Gore said, almost everything will be connected. Not almost everything at work, but also at home, in our cars, and on our bodies as we travel around. It will change education forever, moving to a web-based form of education for our continuing education, but also for our K-12 system and our university systems. Globalization of business will be a given as you move forward. There will be a death of time and distance where everything will be available instantaneously on truly a global basis. And areas such as voice that used to be our primary way of communicating, as data becomes the majority of the load on the network, will first commoditize over the next decade and then ride free as we move forward. In short, it will change everything. We're talking about a revolution. A revolution like the Industrial Revolution of over 200 years ago. There was a simple concept that brought together people and machines and factories and forever changed the have and have-not companies and have and have-not countries. The internet revolution that our government leaders clearly understand on a bipartisan basis will have the exact same effect. It will bring in together people and information and truly a global virtual economy as you move forward. Our country already understands that. It's one of the key reasons that our economy is so strong. During the 70s, less than 10% of capital spending was spent on high-tech equipment. We were still building out the Industrial Revolution, plant and equipment, if you will. At the present time, over 40% of all capital spending is spent on high-tech. And it is this networking of the technology that has really made the difference and allowed our country to achieve this leadership. In short, government and business has the same goals. A strong economy, which technology can play a huge role in determining, the competitiveness of our businesses on a global basis, and the preservation and creation of jobs. More and more government leaders around the world and business leaders are beginning to understand that. And in my recent trips to Asia, I met with the prime ministers of Singapore, of Malaysia, of Australia, the president of China, the prime minister of Japan. A week and a half ago, I met with the prime minister of UK. They are beginning to follow our government's lead here and understanding the correlation between the internet, e-commerce, education, and the health of their economies, the competitiveness of their business, and the creation and preservation of their jobs, and candidly, their ability to remain in power. So it's with a great deal of pleasure today that I'm here to thank government for the role that you've played in understanding way ahead of your counterparts how important this internet revolution is to our future of our country and to businesses, and to thank the people for getting involved from that side. We are at the lead of this internet revolution, but in internet pace, things move very rapidly. The other parts of the world have caught on, both in terms of the value it will play in our future, but also the challenges. So once again, to both the President and to the Vice President and the members of Congress, we want to thank you for the leadership you've taken. At this time, I'd like to introduce one of my counterparts. Meg Whitman has done an amazing job leading a company that just went public literally 3.5 months ago. It's a 3.5-year-old company. Since its IPO, its value has gone up 1,111%, and that's great even by Cisco terms. But it isn't business to business that she heads, or even business to the consumer that we read about. It is truly people to people, an auction type of basis, much like the flea markets or the garage sales of the past. Meg?
Well, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Appreciate the introduction. I'd like to take the next several minutes to tell you a little bit about eBay, because it really is, I think, a model of what the internet can enable in creating an entirely new business. And in fact, that's what eBay did. eBay created an entirely new marketplace, enabling individuals to do business with one another on the internet. And as John mentioned, prior to eBay, individual-to-individual commerce really took place in venues like flea markets, garage sales, and classified advertising. But by enabling people to buy and sell from one another online in a fun and safe environment, eBay has revolutionized person-to-person commerce. Today, over 1.3 million people, not big business, but people, use eBay to buy and sell items without regard to geographic boundaries in over 1,000 different categories. These categories include collectibles, antiques, sports memorabilia, computers, toys, coins, jewelry, and even Beanie Babies. Buyers find unique and interesting items on eBay, everything from a Life magazine signed by John Kennedy to a Mark McGuire rookie card to Titanic memorabilia. Sellers, in turn, find customers far beyond their local area, as well as an exciting way to make a living or supplement their income doing what they absolutely love to do, which is trade in an area of interest of theirs. eBay has captured the imagination of people all over the world. Today, there are over 1 million items for sale on eBay in over 1,000 categories. Sellers will list over 150,000 items for sale just today, and buyers will make over 600,000 bids. In the last 3 months, eBay users conducted over 9 million auctions, representing $195 million worth of gross merchandise sales, which makes eBay the most active consumer e-commerce site on the entire web. And it's still growing. Today, over 10,000 new eBay users will register to buy or sell on eBay. Now, as the Vice President mentioned, eBay was conceived as a result of a conversation between our 30-year-old founder, Pierre Omidyar, and his fiancée, who was an avid Pez collector. And she commented to Pierre how great it would be if she were able to collect Pez dispensers and interact with other collectors over the internet. And as an early internet enthusiast, Pierre knew that people needed a central location to buy and sell unique items and to meet others with similar interests. So on Labor Day of 1995, he started an entirely new company that created an entirely new market, revolutionizing the way people trade on the internet. An unexpected yet gratifying outgrowth of eBay is that eBay has empowered people to make dramatic changes in their lives. For example, Ross Vian of Chicopee, Massachusetts, quit his day job to sell full-time on eBay because he could make more money on eBay doing what he absolutely loved to do. And since he began selling on eBay, he's become more self-sufficient, recently purchasing equipment for his new small business on eBay and buying a new van. Judy Williams of Atlanta, Texas, was ill, unemployed, and without child support for her learning disabled daughter. After receiving $30 for a Michael Jordan Wheaties box and 2 Carpenter pocket rules that she bought at a garage sale for 25 cents apiece, Judy began selling more and more items on eBay and soon no longer needed food stamps or Medicare. And today, she is one of eBay's most successful sellers. eBay is a company that is creating jobs and also empowering individuals to change their lives. And we like to think of ourselves as providing leadership in one of the fastest growth areas for the future, e-commerce. And as we approach the 21st century, there are 2 important factors that are very important to us in terms of furthering eBay's growth. First is privacy. Due to the immediate nature of the internet, we must all be committed to ensuring that the appropriate privacy protections are in place. Through the good work of the Online Privacy Alliance, Trustee, and the BBB Online, American business has established a framework for privacy protection. The most appropriate way to accomplish this is not through government regulation and intervention, but rather by government partnership and enforcement of the existing laws. Second, important to us is liability. For e-commerce to succeed, it's critical that our legal system clearly establish the responsibilities of all participating parties. Congress did just that by providing a safe harbor for internet-based businesses with regard to the publisher-speaker torts. The result was an explosion in web-based e-commerce, web-based communities, each with its own unique focus. And we need the same safe harbor for other torts committed by our users, such as copyright and trademark infringement. A broader safe harbor will result in a more proactive monitoring by companies such as ours and a continued explosion of e-commerce. We are very pleased with the progress that has been made on these and other e-commerce issues, and I'd like to pledge eBay's continued commitment to being a leader in this area and trying to help work on a great government-business partnership. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention today. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I feel like the fifth wheel here. Most of what needs to be said has certainly been said. I want to thank the Vice President for his outstanding leadership. I thank Secretary Rubin and Ambassador Barshevsky, and in his absence, Secretary Daley, Administrator Alvarez, Mr. Podesta, and other members of the administration. I thank all the members of the high-tech community in various forms and permutations who are here in this audience today. And I, too, want to thank the members of Congress for their invaluable help. This, in spite of the ups and downs of partisan debate in Washington, this is one area where we've managed to really pull together a broad bipartisan coalition of members of Congress to do a whole series of good things for America through the Internet over the long run. I want to specifically thank Congressman Cox and Senator Wyden for sponsoring the Internet Tax Freedom Act. I want to thank Senator Hatch, who led the efforts on the copyright protection legislation. I thank Senator Burns, the co-chair of the Internet Caucus, and who, along with Senators Rockefeller and Dorgan, who are here, have played crucial roles on the Senate Commerce Committee in passing electronic commerce legislation, and Congressman Pickering, who's assisted us in the privatization of the domain name system and on many other issues. So I'd like to ask you to give these members of Congress a round of applause. I thank them for what they've done. Now, I'm very grateful to John Chambers and Meg Whitman for being here today and for what they do with their own companies and what they represent for our country's future. I've been wondering what I was going to do in a couple of years. I think I could be a successful trader on eBay. You know, at least I know where I can go and get my political memorabilia now, because I'm. And you know, I always liked John Chambers till I found out he had 70 vice presidents. I don't know what to make of that. He's more important than I am. He's less efficient than I am. Or one great vice president is enough. How's that? I also want to thank my friend of 30 years now, our Magaziner, who's been acknowledged and who's here with his wonderful family for years of work, including many months when this work did not get anything like this level of attention, which it has today. As all of you know, the Thanksgiving weekend marked the beginning of the holiday shopping center and a new holiday tradition. Last year, only 10% of those with home computers shopped for holiday gifts online. This year, the figure is predicted to be over 40%. Online shoppers are buying everything from the latest electronics to old-time Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig baseball cards, thanks to eBay. This new era, therefore, will not only transform commerce, it will lift America's economy in the 21st century. You know, this Thanksgiving, I had a chance again to give thanks for these good times in our country. Less than a decade ago, people were worrying that America could not keep up with global competition. Today, we have the strongest economy in a generation. About 17 million new jobs, the largest real wage growth in 20 years, the lowest unemployment in 28 years, the smallest percentage of people on welfare in 29 years. And we're leading the world in the technologies of the future, from telecommunications to biotechnology. The qualities rewarded in this new economy, flexibility, innovation, creativity, enterprise, are qualities that have long been associated with Americans and our economy. We have to keep this momentum going. That's really what we're here to celebrate, ratify, and commit ourselves to today. I think the first thing we have to do is to stay with the economic policies that have worked for the last 6 years. Fiscal discipline, expanding trade, investing in education and research and development. I think we have to do more work here at home to expand the benefits of the economic recovery to areas and people who have not yet felt it, and I believe the internet has an enormous potential role to play there. I believe to keep this going, we're going to have to do more to contain the economic crisis in the world, to reverse it in Asia, and to deal with the long-term challenges to global financial markets, which Secretary Rubin and I and others are working very hard on. But finally, I think we have to clearly commit ourselves to making the most of what is clearly the engine of tomorrow's economy, technology. We have to make ourselves absolutely committed to the proposition that we will first do no harm. We will do nothing that undermines the capacity of emerging technologies to lift the lives of ordinary Americans. And secondly, that insofar as we can, we will help to create an environment which will enhance the likelihood of success. That is what we are fundamentally celebrating today and committing ourselves to for tomorrow. Information technology now accounts for more than a third of our economic growth. It has boosted our productivity and reduced inflation by a full percentage point. Obviously, few applications of this technology have more power than electronic commerce. If all the sales being conducted over the internet were taking place in one shopping mall, that mall would have to be 30 times the size of the largest mall in the world, Minnesota's Mall of America. 5 years from now, we would need a facility 1,000 times the size of the Mall of America to handle the volume of sales. Now, to fulfill this promise, we have to create the conditions for electronic entrepreneurship. You've heard that discussed. That's why I asked the Vice President to coordinate and our magaziner to work on building a framework for global economic commerce back in late 1995. That's why we committed ourselves to the proposition that the internet should be a free trade zone with incentives for competition, protection for consumers and children, supervised not by governments but by people who use the internet every day. This year, 132 nations followed the U.S. lead by signing a declaration to refrain from imposing customs duties on electronic commerce. We reached agreement supporting our market-driven approach with the European Union, Japan, and other nations. Today, the Australian Prime Minister and I will issue a joint statement along these same lines. Working with Congress, industry, state, and local officials, we passed a law to put a 3-year moratorium on new and discriminatory taxes on electronic commerce. And again, I thank Secretary Rubin and Deputy Secretary Summers for their work on that. We ratified an international treaty to protect intellectual property online. We made it possible to conduct official transactions electronically. We secured the funds to challenge the nation's research community to develop the next generation internet. We passed a law to protect the privacy of our children online. We're working with companies representing a large share of the internet traffic to help them meet our privacy guidelines. We have effectively privatized the internet's domain name and routing systems. We have moved to improve the security and reliability of cyberspace by focusing attention on protecting critical infrastructures and solving the Y2K computer problem. Now, that's a pretty impressive line of work for all concerned. But we see there are still challenges to overcome. Many people who surf the web still don't shop there. They worry they won't get what they thought they were paying for. They'll have nowhere to go if they get cheated. We've already begun to address these fears, not with burdensome regulations that might stifle growth and innovation, but with incentives for online companies to offer customers the protections they need. We must do more. Our country has some of the strongest consumer protections in the world. Today, I asked Secretary Daley to work with the FTC and other agencies, consumer advocates, industry, and our trading partners to develop new approaches to extend the proud tradition of consumer protection into cyberspace. To ensure truthful advertising and full disclosure of information are the foundations of global electronic commerce. People should get what they pay for online. It should be easy to get redress if they don't. We must give consumers the same protection in our virtual mall they now get at the shopping mall. And if the virtual mall is to grow, we must help small businesses and families gain access to the same services at the same speeds that big business enjoys. For many people, connections are so slow that shopping at the virtual mall is filled with frustration. It is as if they had to drive over dirt roads to get to the mall, only to find an endless line of customers just waiting to get into the door. So today I'll also direct Secretary Daley and Ambassador Barshevsky to work with the FCC and our trading partners to promote greater competition to bring advanced high-speed connections into our homes and small businesses, to ensure that the internet continues to evolve in ways that will benefit all our people. Our nation was founded at the dawn of a period not so very unlike this one, a period of enormous economic upheaval when the world was beginning to move from an agrarian to an industrial economy. Alexander Hamilton, our first Secretary of the Treasury, understood these changes well. In his remarkable Report on Manufactures and other of his writings, Hamilton identified new ways to harness the changes then going on so that our nation could advance. Listen to this. He proposed what many thought were radical ideas at the time: a central bank, a common currency, a national system of roads and canals, a crackdown on fraud so that American products would be known all over the world for quality. He created the blueprint that made possible America's industrial age, and many of us believe the preservation of the American Union. Today we are drawing up the blueprints for a new economic age, not for starting big institutions, but for freeing small entrepreneurs. We have the honor of designing the architecture for a global economic marketplace, with stable laws, strong protections for consumers, serious incentives for competition, a marketplace to include all people and all nations. Now, I may not know as much about cable modems and T1 lines as the Vice President. I think we made a living of jokes out of that for 6 years. But I do know, thanks to his and others' work, that electronic commerce gives us an extraordinary opportunity to usher in the greatest age of prosperity not only Americans, but people all over the world have ever known. To me, the most moving thing said from this podium today involved the stories of people in Africa and Latin America lifting themselves from abject poverty through access to the internet. That can happen to more than 1 billion other people in ways that benefit all of us if we do this right. We have made a good beginning. I am confident we will finish the job. Thank you very much.